Why the chosen man always walks alone? Vertical bar, Socrates. Why do so many of history's most memorable figures often walk alone? I'm not talking about solitude as punishment, but rather as a choice, or perhaps as fate. We live surrounded by voices, opinions, societal pressures, algorithms telling us what to think. And yet, the more noise there is, the emptier we feel. Is it possible that true wisdom requires this kind of distance? Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living, but who today has the courage to examine themselves?" The paradox is striking. We seek acceptance, yet it is in silence that we find truth. Perhaps the chosen man isn't the one who collects applause, but the one who bears the burden of solitary questioning. What you're about to discover may change everything you believe about virtue, the soul, and self-awareness. The cave of necessary solitude. Imagine Plato's allegory of the cave. Men trapped, staring at shadows cast on the wall, believing that's reality. Now, bring that into the present. How many times have you scrolled through social media thinking those polished images represented truth? Like the prisoners in the cave, we live entranced by reflections, unaware of the depth of life slipping away. The solitude of the chosen man is, in fact, the courage to step out of this cave, even if it means walking alone. In modern life, this distance is not physical, but mental. It's about turning off your phone, rejecting the addiction of comparison, and allowing yourself to hear your own soul. Recent studies in psychology show that excessive digital stimulation diminishes our capacity for deep reflection. If Socrates were alive today, he likely wouldn't have an Instagram account. Instead, he would be walking the streets provoking questions. He would remind us that virtue arises from internal dialogue, not external approval. Ignorance is the root of all evil, Plato said. And there's no greater ignorance than confusing appearance with essence. The common man gets lost in the crowd, while the chosen man understands that wisdom demands retreat. This retreat is not empty isolation, but a fertile space where self-awareness can blossom. The consequence of refusing to leave the cave is clear. Anxiety, haste, rampant consumerism, a life lived to be displayed instead of felt. Isn't it ironic how we are always connected, yet increasingly lonely? This solitude is not a virtue imposed. It's desperation masked as virtual companionship. The chosen man, on the other hand, embraces solitude as a philosophical laboratory. He transforms it into a tool for freedom, even at the cost of not being understood. Aristotle said, "Man is a political animal," but perhaps it's more accurate to say, man is a social being who, from time to time, needs to learn to be with himself to avoid losing his essence. Thus, the Socratic solution is clear. Cultivate reflection as one would tend a garden. Withdraw from the noise to hear your own voice, which has always been there, but muffled. The true encounter with virtue happens when we have the courage to endure the silence. And what about you? Have you ever tried silencing all external voices to face only your own? Share your thoughts in the comments. The invisible weight of expectations. Think of a taut rope. Each person you know holds one end, pulling in different directions: family, work, friends, society. The common man gets dragged along, but the chosen man realizes that living this way is like trying to please everyone while forgetting about himself. Solitude emerges not as weakness, but as liberation from this tangled web of expectations. In today's world, this conflict shows up in the rush of daily life, responding to messages immediately, posting achievements to prove worth, taking on tasks without saying no. Research indicates that social overload creates chronic anxiety and a sense of emptiness. It's curious. The more we try to meet expectations, the less we recognize ourselves. Socrates would remind us that know thyself is not just advice, but a prerequisite for a fulfilling life. The ignorance here lies in believing that our worth depends on others' opinions. It's a profound error because this quest for approval is never satisfied. The consequence is clear: a life devoid of reflection, where the soul suffers trying to maintain a facade. How many lives smiling in photos, but weep in the silence of the night? The chosen man breaks this cycle. He understands that virtue is not measured by applause, but by internal coherence. Philosophy, at this point, is like a clean mirror. It reveals the truths we avoid. And the truth is simple. No one can carry the world's expectations without breaking apart. The Socratic solution lies in the constant questioning. Why do I do what I do? For whom do I do it? Does this align with my essence? Socrates challenged the Athenians not to humiliate them, but to free them from illusion. Today, we need to apply this same method to our digital lives, asking, is this desire truly mine, or was it implanted in me? And so, solitude becomes a conscious choice, a space to reclaim your own voice amidst the collective noise. It's better to walk alone on the path of truth than to be accompanied on the road of lies. And what about you? Have you ever felt suffocated by the invisible weight of expectations? Share your thoughts in the comments. The silence that reveals the soul. Imagine a tranquil lake. When the waters are stirred, nothing can be seen below the surface. But when the lake is still, its depth is revealed. So it is with the human soul. In the whirlwind of daily demands, we fail to see ourselves. However, the chosen man understands that silence is not emptiness. It's a mirror. In modern life, this metaphor translates into something simple. How many minutes of your day do you spend in complete silence, without music, notifications, or distractions? Studies in neuroscience show that practicing conscious silence reduces stress and enhances mental clarity. Yet, many flee from it, as if fearing the encounter with their own truth. Socrates would ask, what is more dangerous, external noise, or the silence that reveals what you try to hide from yourself? The ignorance lies in believing that silence is a waste of time. But the consequence of this belief is devastating. We never reach self-awareness. We live alienated, confusing movement with progress, noise with life. How many pride themselves on being busy, when, in reality, they are just distancing themselves from themselves? The chosen man, in contrast, learns to transform silence into virtue. It is within silence that philosophy flourishes, because reflection can only arise when the noise ceases. Aristotle said, happiness depends on ourselves. And this is only possible when we stop to listen to what our soul truly desires. The Socratic solution is simple and radical. Practice silence as a philosophical exercise. It's not about esoteric meditation, but about stopping to reflect. Who am I? What do I want? What truth am I ignoring? Socrates didn't provide ready-made answers. He asked questions that stripped the soul bare. In silence, you can become your own master. And so, solitude shifts from absence to presence of oneself. Because, fundamentally, perhaps the greatest companion we need to learn to endure is our own. And what about you? Have you ever faced the discomfort of silence that reveals more than you would like? Share your thoughts in the comments. the truth that drives away crowds. Think of a doctor diagnosing a serious illness. He isn't hated for the illness, but for the truth he reveals. This is how it is with the chosen man. In seeking wisdom, he uncovers uncomfortable truths that drive away the masses. After all, most prefer the comforting illusion to painful questioning. In today's world, this dynamic is clear. How often is someone who chooses to live simply seen as strange amidst consumerism? How many who opt for reflection instead of rushing through digital distractions are judged as disconnected? Research shows that people tend to exclude or criticize those who don't conform to collective behavior. Socrates experienced this firsthand, condemned not for crimes, but for questioning the city about virtue and self-knowledge. The collective ignorance is believing that truth can be shaped by the majority. But the consequence is tragic. Entire societies living in falsehood, reinforced by the echo of their own opinions. Aristotle warned, "Be a friend of truth, even more than of Plato." In other words, even the most sacred bonds yield to the obligation of honoring the truth. The chosen man knows that seeking the truth may mean losing friends, status, and even safety. But he also understands that this is the price of soul freedom. Philosophy is not a path to popularity, but to virtue. Socrates would say, "I prefer the painful truth to the comforting lie." The solution is not to isolate oneself in resentment, but to accept that walking alone is better than walking in a crowd in the wrong direction. Constant questioning is the beacon that guides this journey. Interestingly, as solitude imposes itself, it also purifies. Those who stay by the chosen man's side do so out of a shared affinity of soul, not convenience. Thus, solitude is not a desert, but a filter. It removes the superficial and brings closer what is essential. It is at this point that the chosen man strengthens, even when misunderstood. And what about you? Have you lost people by choosing truth over approval? Share your thoughts in the comments. The unexamined life. What if everything you believe is just an illusion? What if the life you defend is merely a shadow on the wall of the cave? What if you have never truly known yourself? These questions echo like thunder. They are not comfortable. They are open wounds. Socrates once warned, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This is perhaps the most radical phrase in philosophy. It's not just poetry or metaphor. It's a verdict on existence. A life without questioning is death disguised as routine. Today, we risk dying slowly while pretending to be alive, chasing goals that aren't ours, flashing smiles on screens that hide tears, collecting things that bring no meaning. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." Thus, slavery is not outside, but within. The greatest ignorance is believing that one can live without reflection. The consequence? A soul sold to illusions. An entire society marching blindly toward the abyss of consumerism, digital anxiety, and aimless haste. The chosen man, in contrast, stops, faces the void, and asks, "Who am I truly?" This is the moment when solitude stops being a circumstance and becomes a calling. It's not an option, it's destiny. It's not isolation, it's awakening. Socrates died for this calling, Plato recorded it, and we inherit the responsibility to honor this legacy. The climax is this: facing the most important decision of your life. To live anesthetized or to live awake? To accept the collective lie or to dive into the solitary truth? To walk with the masses or to walk alone, but free? And what about you? Have you ever questioned whether your life is truly worth living? Share your thoughts in the comments. The virtue of walking alone. Think of a narrow mountain trail. The path is steep, rocky, and requires effort. Crowds prefer the wide road of the valley, where comfort reigns. But the chosen man understands that the true elevation of the soul only happens when one accepts the solitude of the climb. There are no crowds at the summit, only silence, and a view that few will have the courage to contemplate. In today's world, this summit can be translated into small daily choices. Turning off your phone when everyone is scrolling through feeds, rejecting consumerism when everyone buys impulsively, seeking reflection when everyone avoids it. These gestures may seem insignificant, but they reveal the courage to swim against the current. As Seneca said, "No one goes wrong by following the crowd, but no one gets it right either." The ignorance is believing that being accompanied is synonymous with being on the right path. The consequence is a life led by social comparisons, fleeting trends, and an eternal quest for acceptance. The common man follows the masses. The chosen man questions the direction of the masses. The Socratic solution is not to disdain society, but to learn to be whole even when alone. Solitude becomes a virtue when it fosters self-awareness, wisdom, and inner freedom. It is in this solitary space that philosophy flourishes, that truth reveals itself without filters, and that the soul finds peace. Interestingly, over time, this solitary journey inspires others. Those who dare to question, reflect, and live according to the truth attract not crowds, but a few sincere companions. And perhaps that's the most valuable reward, surrounding oneself with people who don't follow your shadow, but share your light. Thus, the solitude of the chosen man is not abandonment, but consecration. It's the price, and also the prize, of living a life guided by philosophy, virtue, and the courage to examine one's own existence. And what about you? Have you realized that some roads can only be traversed in silence, with your own conscience as your companion? Share your thoughts in the comments. We've reached the end of this philosophical journey. If there's one thing Socrates left us as a legacy, it's the clarity that the value of a life is not in the quantity of applause received, but in the depth of self-knowledge attained. The chosen man always walks alone because his compass is not external. It's the soul, guided by wisdom, reflection, and the relentless questioning of truth. In the silence of solitude, we discover that virtue is not a luxury, but a necessity. And that sometimes walking alone is the only way to avoid losing oneself in the crowd. There's hope in this path, because even in solitude, it brings us closer to what is essential, real, and truly liberating. If this reflection resonated with you, comment. The examined life is worth living. And subscribe to continue this philosophical dialogue. The next step may reveal something even deeper. The man who dares to know himself is never truly alone. He is in the company of his own truth.